My ex came back into my life after 2 years. And he's not just any ex, he was the biggest heartbreak of my life that triggered that pain. And I turned it into the biggest glow up of my life. It triggered my inner healing, it triggered my spiritual awakening. I became who I am today because of him. And I feel like this is a spiritual test because I've glowed up so hard, and I feel like the devil is knocking on my door to see if I've truly grown. And the reason why I say this is a test from the universe is because in these last 2 years, so much happened. I moved to Barcelona. I started my business. My business went from $1,000 a month to $100,000, 6 figures a month within 2 years. I have a team of 8 women working for me and a community of 200,000 followers that are learning how to invest with me. And not to mention, I've also almost fell in love 2 more times and getting heartbroken 2 more times. But this guy started this whole story. So when he messaged me a few days ago and told me he's in Barcelona for a off-season football trip because he's a famous football player in China, I could not believe my eyes. And so many scenarios were in my head thinking, what if we still have that connection? I still had that closure that I never had from him because he completely broke my heart. And before I tell you what went down yesterday night when he confessed that he was in love with me, I need to first tell you what happened. How did this all happen? What was the story that led to this point? So let's move back to 2021 when I was still living in China. Back then, I just graduated from university and I took a gap year. So I went back to China and I was living with my mom. And 1 month in, when I moved back to China, I met him at a club. And there was just this instant like love at first sight. Like when I saw him, I felt like I've known him my entire life. When we met, I was like, oh my God, he's a halfie as well. Like you guys can't imagine how rare it is for me to meet another guy that is also like mixed Chinese and mixed European, like just like me, you know? So I felt like I was looking in a mirror. And long story short, after meeting him that one time, we were inseparable. We spent every single day together for like 12 hours in a row. And back then he was loaded. Like he was one of the biggest Chinese football players. And he was making like $50,000 a month. He was good looking. We had this instant like soulmate connection that I was like, I think he's my soulmate. And in that month, it was so intense. And then he broke my heart. And what did he do? Well, I always thought he was single because he told me he just got out of a relationship like a few months ago. And I was also in a similar situation. I was in a 3-year situation, but my breakup was very healthy and I moved on. And he told me he moved on. He was single. And turns out 1 month in of this intense, we were seeing each other every single day. He was taking me to 5-star luxury hotels. He was taking me to Ritz-Carlton, to W Hotel, always a superior suite. Like I was treated like a princess. There was such an amazing emotional, intellectual, physical, and spiritual connection with him that when he told me he was going to go back to Norway for the holidays, he said his ex is still living in his apartment. And my heart dropped. I was like, what do you mean your ex is still living in your apartment? Turns out this motherfucker never broke up with his girlfriend and they were on a break. And it was all a conditional thing that when he goes back to Norway, they're back together. And so you can't imagine the heartbreak that I went, like the intense 1 month with him every single day thinking he was the one, to all of a sudden there's this girl in his story that comes up and he was never broken up with his girlfriend. So he completely lied to me and manipulated me. And he went back to Norway for 1 month. And I never got the closure I wanted. After he left to Norway, I got sick for 2 weeks. Like, my whole body shut down. I was so affected by this break that I had tonsillitis. I lost like 3 kilos. It was like, you girls know, every girl has this one heartbreak that completely broke them. This was my story. And so I had to force myself to create a story, a closure for myself that I am not an option. He could be the most perfect guy, but he's not the perfect guy for me if he ended up choosing another girl over me. Then I'm not the one for him, because at the end of the day, it's all about decisions. Even though he was feeding all those words telling me, you're the one for me, I've never felt something like this before with any other girl. Until they actually make a decision to be with you, it's all fluff. And that was the hardest lesson that I learned, was to block out all the things he was telling me and just look at his actions. So I ended up moving on really hard. I put that pain into doing the healing. That's how my whole spiritual journey started. I started doing shadow work and journaling, asking myself all these deep questions, like, why am I attracting these type of men that hurt me? And through all this healing, a few months later, he came back into my life. This was still 2 years ago, by the way. He came back 2 years, a few months after, and he's like, I'm back in China. I broke up with my girlfriend again. I want to try it with you. But he still didn't break up with his girlfriend, because his girlfriend was still like, he's providing for her. She was still living in his apartment. So I was like, you know what? I'm better than this. No matter how in love I was like, I deserve a man that chooses me for me. So what ended up happening was, he tried to get into my life. I blocked him everywhere. He ended up, this next part is so crazy. So you need to like grab your popcorn and a glass of red wine, because I think this was like this was the first biggest revenge I've ever done. And it felt so sweet. It felt so good. So back then I was still coaching, right? I was coaching my students on how to invest in stock market, and he always wanted to invest. And what was his excuse for finding a way back to me? He found my business Instagram account where I would be teaching investing. He DM'd me and he said, I always told you that I wanted to learn how to invest. Can you teach me? And I was like, what is this man? What kind of sick game is this man playing? He's trying to find every single excuse to get back into my life. And now he's using my job, my career to like find a way to get back into my life. But then I thought, what if I charged him a lot of money and I did just teach him how to invest, because I felt like it was genuine. And I asked my mom what she would do in this situation. And she was like, charge him $6,000. Take it or leave it. And I was like, are you sure? Like, is he gonna say yes? She's like, he's loaded. He's making $50,000 a month. What do you expect? Like, he'll do it. If he really likes you and he's really wants to get back into your life, he'll do it. So I got on a sales discovery call with him and I closed him, and he paid $6,000 upfront. And I literally taught him how to day trade. And it kind of just fizzled out afterwards. I think at one point he still went back to his ex, like nothing happened. He actually genuinely wanted to learn how to trade with me. And that was the end of the story. Or at least I thought. I genuinely thought I would never see him in my entire life again. And I was really properly moved on. 2 years later, I've moved to Barcelona. I've scaled my business. I've had business partners. I've scaled my business up to 100,000. I moved to Dubai to set up my business. Now I'm back from Dubai and I'm spending like 1 or 2 weeks here in Barcelona. I'm going through the most difficult time of my business right now. my Instagram has been banned for 2 months now because of I had a lot of hackers trying to take down my account. It's still down now. I'm going through a major obstacle from my career side. And what a coincidence it is that the universe is bringing back an emotional big event in my life coming with him. So I feel like really this is a big spiritual test because I'm kind of at this stage in this period of my life where things are very fragile and there's this next big wave that's just hitting me. And so let me tell you what happened yesterday. So at first he told me like the reason why he's here is because he came with a group of 18 of his other Norwegian football players to Barcelona because they're done with their season and they're kind of doing like a trip, kind of like a grad trip, but for their football team. And when he was like, hey, he came up to me initially, he said, I want recommendations to Barcelona. Obviously, I'm not dumb. He wanted to just find an excuse to talk to me. He didn't want recommendations. Why would he could talk to anyone? He'd get any tour guide to ask him or any of his friends to give him advice on like the best clubs. But he asked me. So I gave him the recommendations because I'm so healed. I was not so fixated on him anymore. So I came in very open-minded, see what is this all about. So he wanted to meet up and catch up for coffee. So I thought, okay, I have no expectations. I kind of wanted to get into this thinking, I'll just show him how much I've grown and kind of really like see if he misses out on it. But deep down, I felt like he was still with his girlfriend. Like after all these years, he's still with his girlfriend and I think he's just playing some game. But boy, was I wrong. When we met, it felt like nothing has changed. And it felt like I haven't changed, he hasn't changed. We were just so comfortable around each other. And after like catching up for 1 hour, he became so vulnerable and open up about all his feelings. And he told me all the emotions that he felt and what he processed, his version of the story when we broke up. Because up until now, I thought I was the only one that was hurt and broken. But you know what he said to me? He said, Celine, one of the biggest regrets of my life is losing you. And I've spent so many nights crying, wishing that I decide to be with you instead of going back to Norway and making it work with my ex. And I'm still in love with you. Can you imagine how confused I was? And also another thing, like, this was just such a big confidence boost for me because I was like, 2 years ago, little Celine would be like, oh my God, I wish he would come back to me and he would say he's in love with me. 2 years later, after healing and growing and leveling up, I hear this from my ex telling me that he's still in love with me. I felt really like, to be honest, I felt really good about myself. I was like, mission accomplished. This is like the ultimate upgrade revenge that every girl dreams of. I'm sure like all of you guys like have wanted that, right? But here's the thing. So, okay. We ended up kissing. We kissed. Because I still felt like deep down there was still something there. And I felt when we kissed, I felt like I was traveling back in time and I was myself again when I was still in Shanghai, the unhealed version. And I'm like so spiritually in tune with myself that I was like feeling my body and I felt like started feeling sad. I started feeling like it's so hard to describe the feeling, but I didn't feel like, yes, this feels right. I felt like this feels familiar. Like when we kissed, it felt like we were connected again. Like it was a very strong the kiss was amazing, don't get me wrong. But I feel like I am no longer the same Celine as I was before. And he's no longer the same guy that he was before. And this new version of me that is so healed and loves herself so much is no longer a spiritual match to the ex that I was so in love with. And I'm still to this day I'm still pondering about this. And I'm so confused because on one side, I've I feel like we're so deeply connected with each other, and I think this is not the end of the story. I think we're gonna still see each other multiple times throughout our lives because I really believe this, guys, to the bottom of my heart, that he's my twin flame. I think our souls are really similar. Like we came into this life going through the same thing. He has a Chinese mom. I have a Chinese mom. He has a European dad. I have a European dad. He grew up his whole life playing piano and like he thought he was gonna pursue a artist career and then he did football. I thought I was gonna pursue an artistic career and then I went into like my business. But we had such a mirror parallel like life path. And when we met in Shanghai, I was still finding myself, he was still finding himself. So this was like a karmic contract, a karmic soul that we were meant to learn something from each other. And boy, did he teach me how to love myself. And I think this time around, when I saw him, I saw that he was so lost in his eyes. He lost himself. Sure, he's so successful in his career. He's doing well right now. He's back in football. But he has no inner love for himself. He can't be alone. He can't be single. He's has no purpose. He's not doing something that truly fulfills him. Whereas I've done the inner work to find what I truly love to do in my life, which is building my business and helping women invest in the stock market and doing what I do now. He has stayed the same since the last 2 years. And so I am at this vibrational level where I'm up here and he's spiritually down here. Even though he's still pretty good looking, he's still very successful, but we're no longer a spiritual match for each other. And so I don't know if he's anymore the right guy for me. And maybe the universe is giving me that kind of full circle completion circle. I don't know yet if this is the end because I want to give it a shot with him. I don't know. I still want to like see where this goes because I feel, like I said, I feel this twin flame connection with him. Like I've known him for many years, many lives. And I feel this time like a bit sorry for him. And I feel like true compassion that I want to help him. I want to guide him spiritually because he's so lost. And I think he's so capable and he has so much potential to become that highest version of himself. And I think I can guide him. Of course, without draining my own energy. And that's something I have to be very careful of because one thing that happened last time when we were together was it completely destroyed me. And I'm not going to let that happen to me again after spending so much time building myself up. I'm not going to have someone that is so spiritually low vibration to bring me down. But I also believe like sometimes some people are not there to change your life, but you're there to help them and change their life. So he's done with his season for football and he has 40 days of holiday and he has no plans. He doesn't know where to go. And he was literally telling me, Celine, I don't feel like traveling with my guys. I just want to be with you. And I can't imagine doing anything else but be with you. I feel like this is a notebook moment. Like I feel like I'm just such in a movie right now. So I don't know where this is gonna go. If you want a part two to this, comment below and give this a like, because there is definitely going to be a part two or a part three or a part 78. Because this has really, like, this relationship has changed the course of my life to who I am today. This was a spiritual lesson for me. And so that's the tea. And I hope you guys enjoyed the story as much as I loved talking about it. But yeah, stay tuned. If you want a part two, I don't know if I'm going to make a part two, but if you want a part two, I might give you guys an update next week or a few months later or a few years later. But yeah, stay tuned and love you girls. Thank you for following my journey.